Good morning, everyone. It's Brenda Quintana here, live from the Beehive at cupiesquest.com. And today I'm going to be sharing with you my Casing Tuesday card, and I'll show you how I made it. Casing Tuesday is when we take a card, we pick a card out of the annual catalog for the week, and we copy it. Now, I normally take the card and change it into something else, and I use the layout, sometimes I use the colors. Other people will copy the card exactly, and that's great because it's a great learning experience when you take a card and you just recreate it, because you learn a lot about the mechanics of how the card came together. So that's why we case, and we have a Facebook group where we can all share our creations. So if you're not part of that Facebook group already, when you go to the link of this video, the description of the video, there's a link to the Facebook group, and if you click on it and ask to join the group, we'll approve you, and then you can join in the fun, and you can create your own card using the same card that we're using for the week. You can go back and do the older cards as well, but we always have a new card every Tuesday, so that's when to definitely look, and you have all week to do it, because that way, you know, people are creating that card all through the week and posting through the week. So it's kind of fun to see what everyone comes up with, so it's really cool. The card I did today, there's a bit of a backstory on it, and I'll just share that with you right now. So there's this little dachshund, and he's like kind of getting ready to see what's on the table, and that set really spoke to me. We had a Shetland sheepdog named Bella, and she wasn't a counter grazer. She couldn't actually, you know, get her paws all the way up to our kitchen counter. But if you put something on the dining room table, she was kind of curious as to what was on the table. And one day, my neighbor and good friend came over with a blueberry muffin for me. She's like, "These blueberry muffins are fantastic. You gotta try one." And I'm like, "Okay, great." So I took the napkin with the muffin and put it in the center of the dining room table. And then I walked her out the door and continued to talk to her out on our driveway. And lo and behold, I come back and there's the napkin on the floor. There's like a few crumbs, and the muffin paper are completely gone. And I just thought, you know, Bella, she was usually really, really well behaved, but when it came to food, she had a few weaknesses, and that was one of them. And so it was kind of funny. This card that we did today, that I did today, actually reminds me a lot of her, and lots of good memories when it comes to her. So anyway, let's get started, and I will show you the card that I'm casing, and I'll show you the card that I made today, and then we'll get down to actually making it. I have to flip around the camera to do that, so just give me 1 second. Need to find the flip button. All right, and let me move my camera so okay, we need to be up just a little bit more, so we're straight. Okay, so this is the card here, and we're now on to the holiday catalog. As of September 1st, you can order from the holiday catalog, and there's a lot of cool things in this catalog. We've got lots of Christmas, we've got fall and Thanksgiving type stamp sets, and we've got Halloween, if that is what interests you. But we have a lot of Christmas. And so this card here on page 10 of the catalog is the one that Catalina picked for this week. It's a really great layout. I think it's kind of, you know, it's a small card in the catalog, so you may overlook it as one that you would want to copy. But I think Catalina was very wise in choosing this one. It's got a nice big focal point layer. You could do words, and in my case, I did a little image. So this is what I did with mine, and isn't this cute? This little dachshund, he's putting his nose right to the table where the cookies are. I think it's just adorable. And I used a different paper on here, and it's just a really great layout. So let me show you how I made this card. Oh, before we do that, this is the Ready for Christmas stamp set, and it actually comes in a bundle. I'm only using the stamp set today, but if you're interested in the stamp set, I would also go ahead and look at the dies. Actually, I have them over on my table behind me. I won't run and get them now, but when you buy the framelits and the stamp set at the same time, you can save 10%. So I also put that on my supply list just in case anyone was interested in getting them both at the same time, which I recommend. It's neat to be able to cut things out as well as just stamp them flat. But today I just did a lot of stamping. So let's start. I didn't really decide what I would start with. Let me start with the hardest part, which is creating this banner layer. So this banner layer, what I did for that is I started with a piece of Whisper White cardstock. I actually used thick Whisper White because we're putting those sequins behind there, and I wanted it to be sturdy enough. So this piece is 2 3/4 inches by 4 inches. And let me grab my ruler. This isn't usually the ruler I use, but 2 3/4 inches, you need to find the center point. So of that, let me see. I used my centering ruler the first time, so 1.5. It is 1 3/8 inches, I believe. Yeah. So first of all, I make a mark 1 3/8 inches over, because this is a 2 3/4 inch width. And then I want to make a mark 3/4 of an inch up from the bottom. So I'm just going to move my centering mark down a little bit. And then I want to draw lines from the corners to that mark. And this is what's going to create the banner. Now, when you do this, you're going to be like, yeah, this is a pain. I'm only going to want to make one of these cards. It's really not a pain at all, because once you've got this first one measured out, all you need to do is use it as a template and trace your next one. So I've just drawn this on here. I'm going to use my paper snips to cut out, oops, the banner end. I don't know what you call that. Like that. And then I want to make, if I want to make another one, I grab an identical piece to start with. So we've got 2 3/4 inches by 4 inches. I line it up, and then I just trace it. So, you know, you don't need to do, oops, I don't think that one got line. You don't need to measure every time. You just need to cut every time, trace and then cut. So it's really quite easy. I'm going to flip this over because it has a pencil mark on this side. And then I'm going to stamp all of the pieces that I need. I'm going to use Memento Tuxedo Black ink. It's kind of my favorite black because it doesn't really stain my stamps as much. You could also use our basic black archival ink. If you use that ink, it's a fabulous black ink, but I recommend heat setting if you're going to watercolor first. With the Memento ink, it is technically not waterproof. It is actually water-based. So if you use a blender pen and you're careful, you can like use this ink, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to pull this off, and I'm going to start off with this little table right here. And while I'm here, I'm going to say a group hello to everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today. So I'm going to stamp this to the left of the banner. Left off the banner there, or on the left side of the banner. That sounds better. Okay, and then I'm going to take my little dachshund. I never know how to pronounce that because it's pronounced different in German. And compared to English, and you know, I learned German was my first language, and so sometimes like I just don't even know how to pronounce things. So the Dachshund is on the right side. Then you're going to stamp the little cookies, or I'm going to stamp them, and I'm going to stamp them just above the table like that. And then I'm going to take my greeting, which is sharing the joy, which, you know, share the joy with your dog. Maybe don't give them chocolate chip cookies though, because that would not be good for dogs to have chocolate, but they can have their own cookie treat. Bella always wanted a treat when we were having a treat, and so it's a good thing to share treats with your dogs, just not too many. And then I use the blender pen, and I might not color this whole thing, but let me show you some of it. I hope my volume is still okay. I have to kind of sit down to do this. Maybe not. I'll try and do it standing up so I can see my camera. So these are blender pens, and they're just filled with a clear fluid. And if you take your ink pad, and I've got my crumb cake ink pad here, and you squeeze the lid's actually underneath, it creates this pool of ink, and now you can use that to watercolor. So I'm just going to take this ink pad. Oh, and the other thing I'm going to use is I need a scrap piece of paper. So, because you want to test out your color first, right? And then you can use little back and forth strokes, or you can use like a small circular motion. Try it both ways and see how you get better blending. Using blender pens, there's a little bit of a learning curve to it. It's not hard, but I always like to kind of blend out the darker parts, you know, where you first put down your pen. And sometimes that's hard to do with blender pens. If you use watercolor paper, it's easier to do that because regular paper tends to pill, and so you don't have that much opportunity to blend. But I just sat down to do that, but you can see that turned out pretty well. I also need to do his little paws, so like that. Oh, and I'll need to do the cookies too. So while I have that out here, let's just go ahead and do the cookies. This is the hardest part of this card, is the watercoloring. So, and then when you're done with a color, you just scribble on your scrap piece of paper. So the next thing I'm going to do, let's go ahead, let's do the fun stuff first. Let's do Real Red. Squeeze the pad, open it up, get your ink going, test it out. I'm going to do a red plate to put the cookies on. And then I'm just going to do some red highlights on the sweater. Like that. I think I got all the red that I need. Scribble, 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 get rid of the ink. Next, we're going on to the Old Olive. Oh, Janine says I'm cutting in and out. Sorry if I'm cutting in and out. If anyone's out there, let me know if you're all cutting in and out. Because sometimes it could be your internet too. You know, depending on where you're at. I know this morning I was watching a Facebook Live and people were saying, oh, the person kept buffering. And I did not find that they were buffering. So it could be your internet connection too, but it could be mine. So if anyone else is out there. Oh, okay, and Janine says it came out and it's back. Okay, and Catherine says it's okay. All right. I just wanted to check because sometimes it's our local connection that's having problems rather than my connection. My connection's usually pretty good, but my teenager is home this morning. He is a junior this year, and they don't have to go to school till noon. So he's here this morning, and sometimes he's doing something computer intensive, so it's always good to check. It's back to school day for a lot of people up here in the north, so happy back to school day. It's kind of weird having a junior in the house. That's I only have one kiddo, so we're going through this all for the first time, and it just seems to be fast forwarding. This is early espresso ink, and this is a dark ink, so I'm going to scribble off a bit, and I'm going to start here at the bottom, and I'm going to work up from the bottom. Scribble, 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 and do each leg first, like that. Since I'm working up from the bottom, it kind of creates shading from the bottom too, which I like, you know, like kind of the light source. It's dark on the bottom and getting light up top. So I'm working my way up. Sorry it takes a long time to watercolor, but I thought probably it's a good idea to show you how I did it, because sometimes, you know, you just see the finished card and you're like, how the heck did she color that? So then I'm just going to come along here and lightly do this table here. Like that. That looks pretty good. So I'm not going to do any shading underneath. Sometimes you can do shading, but I've got so much brown going on, and I think the shadows would kind of detract from this. So I'm just going to kind of leave it like that. This little note for Santa, we love you. I'm just going to leave that white as it is. It looks pretty plain right now, I have to admit. Just looking at it like this, it looks kind of really plain. So once you get it on the card, it looks so much better. So let me show you how I put the rest of this card together. So I have an old olive card base. So this card base I like to do tent fold. So this one's 11 inches by 4¼ inches, and then I scored it at 5½. This is the, you'll recognize it if I turn it over. This is the, where's my little post-it note? Cheater post-it note. A Christmas Around the World paper. I love this paper because it's got nice, bright, brilliant patterns on the one side, very busy patterns. And I actually debated, do I use this pattern? But you can see it was a little bit perhaps too busy to use this pattern in the background because there's a lot going on in my focal point. So I thought a dark plain pattern would really make my focal point pop. So that's what I did. This piece is 3¾ inches by 5 inches. And I'm going to use some snail adhesive in the 4 corners to add this to my card base. So I just centered it because that's what it was on the sample. So I would just center that. Now we have to do a few things to this little piece before we can add it to the card. So let me flip this over, and actually let me do this little, before I flip it over, I need to do these little banner pieces down here at the bottom. So the best way I found to do that, I've cut these pieces to 5/8 inches by 3 inches. And I'm just going to, I've got 2 of them right here, line them up, and I'm just going to get the same angle cuts on both of them, I'm just going to cut them both at the same time. Then I can turn them like this, and I can bring them together, and I can use like a little bit of snail adhesive to bring them together how I want them. It's probably the easiest ways to do it first. You know, if you want one lower than the other, you can do that. And then you can put a little bit of snail on here, and then you can just add this to the back of the card, however you want it. Okay, now we can flip it over. And now I'm going to use tear and tape. And the reason I'm going to use tear and tape is we're going to use that mini sequin trim in the gold. And so I'm just going to put sticky strip, actually this is now called tear and tape, along here. And this is what is going to hold my sequin trim. Okay, I went a little bit long there. I'll cut that off in a second. I'm also going to put some right across the back here, like that, to hold everything down. Should I go right? No, I was worried that I had gone over my little opening here, but no, that's good. So I'm going to just trim this off. Okay, and then I'm going to remove the liner. End over here. Sorry, I wish I could fast forward this, but I can't on a live segment. My thumbnails are kind of short today. And one more. Okay, so now how do I get that gold sequin trim on here? So I'm going to start off reverse from what I have here. So I'm just going to line this down here. I want a little bit sticking off the end. If I need to, I can always trim that end. Then I just loop it around, kind of get it so it's sitting down, loop it around like that. And then coming this way, you know, I want a loop hanging off and an end hanging off. And then like that. And then I'll just take my scissors and trim it off. So I've already got adhesive to stick this thing down, as well as my gold trim, sequin trim is already on there. So when I flip it around, it looks like that. If you want to play with it a little bit, it's pretty easy to get the sequin trim to move at this point. You know, if you think that this length is like you want it a little shorter, you can still move it. So I like the look of that. And then I can just come here, and then I can make sure it looks good where I want to stick it down. And then I can just plop it down on my card. And there it is, it's all done. So that was my card for Casing Tuesday for today. I actually started off making a different card that I didn't use, and I'll show you that one. This one, I forget the stamp set that I used for this one, but these are products all out of the catalog. And I made this one and I was like, it's okay, but it didn't make me happy. So I just, I liked the greeting, but I was originally going to use it with the busier side of the paper, and it was just too much with this type of font. So this is just a simple card I made using the same paper, the back side, the simpler side, and I like this one too, but I was like, yeah, I wasn't quite happy enough with it, so I ended up making a second card, which was this one, and I like it a lot better. Oh, and someone said the sequin trim makes it perfect. Thank you. I have a ribbon drawer, and every time I you know, make a card or something like that, I always go to my ribbon drawer and look at all the ribbon that I have, and I'm like, okay, which one will match this particular card? And on the sample, they used that new jute twine, and that would have looked good too, but I think just a little bit of sparkly with a sequin trim makes that perfect. So let me flip you guys around. All right, here I am again. Okay, I'm a little crooked. Hope you don't mind. So if you're looking for supplies that I used today, go ahead and click on the link in the description of this video, and it will take you to my blog. And I have a visual supply list down at the bottom that shows all the products I use to make the card. I also have all the measurements on my blog, so if you didn't catch what I was saying, or you want it just to be written down so you can see it, go there and I have all the measurements. I will be posting this video to YouTube later today. And then the good thing is, if you've already joined the Casing Tuesday Facebook group, I hope I'll see your card sometime this week so I can comment on it and see what you did. There's a lot of options with this card. It has a nice big focal point. Use big words if you want to, or use one of the pretty image stamp sets, and you don't have to make it a holiday card. This is a really good layout for it. It's definitely not just for only holiday cards. So make it what you want to make it. Or if you like the original card, go ahead and make the original card. Show us how that looks. It always looks more impressive in person than it does in a photo. The photos never do the layers and stuff justice. So go ahead and make the card. I'm going to scroll back for a second and make sure that no one asks me a question. So just bear with me as I look through my reading glasses. That's why I have to, I've got those readers built into my glasses. So when I look like that, that's me reading the screen. So let me just go in. Okay. It looks like there's no questions, but if you ever have a question for me afterwards, please feel free and post in the comments, or email me, and I will try and get to your question and answer it for you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will be back here next Tuesday again with another card. Thanks so much for joining, and have a great week. Bye-bye.